This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.
We are diving back into the latest dramatic developments in the Bryan Kohberger murder case, one of the most closely followed and emotionally charged criminal cases unfolding right now. The court recently denying Kohberger's defense motions, including their request for a trial delay and efforts to introduce claims of an alternate suspect. The stage is now set for a contentious courtroom showdown, adding complexity that we have new questions about the credibility of key witnesses, particularly the DoorDash driver whose sudden eyewitness claims are raising serious eyebrows. Joining me today to break it all down, exactly what the latest moves mean and how jurors might react, and the subtle psychological dynamics at play in high-stakes criminal trials. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent and chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Decades of experience in human behavior. And this whole case is, we've obviously been watching it for almost 3 years now. Let's start with the alternate suspect theory. This is one of the biggest things that just recently broke. The judge has said, "We're sorry. You did not have the receipts that we asked for." Because they said, look, you got to come to us, give us the story, we'll hear it. And if we think it's a whole lot of nothing, we're going to tell you it's a whole lot of nothing. And they came back and said, you just gave us a whole lot of nothing. Let me get your take on this, because the arguments that they brought were not good. Like, one of them was like a guy that saw one of the girls in a convenience store, glanced at her, and then they parted ways. That was it. And the others, and the FBI looked into every single one of them, checked them all out, they did their due diligence. Every single one has been excluded. But the defense of Kohberger is still trying to break this. What's your thoughts on how this all went down?
Well, first, I got to make sure that people watching understand I'm smiling not because of the horrendous murders that were done with these poor children, but we are on the road to justice. I am so excited for this case because justice is going to be served. My thoughts on this, man. How much is she going to throw at the windshield on this one? It's like, hey, these girls know 4 people. Let's make them suspects. You just can't do that. You just can't throw a fishing net out there and say, hey, these people are suspects too, or they could possibly have done it without any shred of anything. Even it's like everyone in their lives is then a suspect, and by that kind of logic that
anybody who's communicated with them basically becomes a suspect. She's trying, but it's too much desperation at this point, isn't it? I mean, she's a seasoned attorney. She knows how this is going to land. I can't imagine she was putting together that motion thinking, oh yeah, the judge is going to be cool with this. Is she going through the motions because she has to? Is Bryan
especially
sitting there?
This judge, this is a tough judge. This is a great judge. He's been solid, man. So what she's not doing, it's interesting. I give her so much credit for being smart, but at the same time, this judge's pattern behavior, you knew he was going to say no. He says no to all crazy crap that she's been coming up with. So why would this have been why would she expect anything different? So, which begs the question. So, and she's smart. So let's put ourselves in her shoes. Yeah. She knows the pattern behavior. She's got reps of doing this. She's not doing it for the trial itself in terms of the judge, the legal aspect of it. I still think the only thing she's working on right now is jury perception management. To shreds of doubt. That's it. I think the only thing that she's working on is saving his life by a non-unanimous decision, and he's guilty.
And that's a big thing, especially as we're learning more and more of this world that we live in that is ever evolving, and the way that we absorb information seems to almost change year to year. What is extremely influenceable, or what was extremely influenceable as a platform 3 years ago, is not the same as it would be today. Saying one thing in this way to then is not the same way now. So it's constantly evolving on what seems to be resonating with people more than ever before. That being said, half of your battle, if not more than half of your battle, 75%, 85%, I think, of your battle in a criminal case night right now. This is just my opinion. This is not any sort of study. Probably done before the trial actually starts.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, that's usually through motions, but I'm talking about jury perception, potential jury perception. It's more like a campaign than it is, let's, pick the most, optimal jurors here, because in the past, most people didn't know the details of all of these cases in such great depth. Now, if they pay, even a small amount of attention, you can consume a ton of information. So getting this out there, getting this argument that maybe there's other perpetrators here, even if it's not approved for the case, like it wasn't here, you still maybe have influenced some people out there that are just passively listening. They went, what is this I heard about possible other perpetrators that may be considered for a jury? That's a big thing to try and win. And I'm thinking she's playing that card as strong as she can, because she had to damn well know this was never going to make it to trial with those other third-party culprits.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. So she's argued that, change of venue because of the biased jury pool. And so she's aware of the biased jury pool. She's trying to use that fact in her favor. But since she knows the jury pool is going to be biased because of social media and because of all the notoriety this case is getting, she's going to use that to her advantage, again, with reasonable doubt with someone. So she keeps throwing all these alternate theories out there. The next thing I'm doing, if I'm in her shoes doing that thought experiment, was, in order for one of these things to take hold, we have to make Kohberger a sympathetic character. And how do we make him sympathetic in the courtroom? We explain his awkward, weird, creepy behavior because he's got autism. He's on the spectrum. So hopefully someone in the jury has someone in their lives that's on the autism spectrum, so you can have a sympathetic thing, because it takes just one person to not be 100% convinced, to have that reasonable doubt about it was him. And so we're going to throw all these theories that are going to potentially grab hold with someone for reasonable doubt, and you make him a sympathetic character, we might save his life. I really think that's all she's grasping at.
Yeah. An interesting thing on that about the weird, creepy character. Yeah, he's got autism.
That's my scientific term.
Well, the thing, like, if you were to be able to do a study, like, just gather every weird and creepy character of every person you've ever met in your life, that just kind of gives off that vibe, I would guess a very high percentage would be on the autism scale, because that's why they're weird and creepy, because that's the only way they know how to live. That's how their brains function. Now, it doesn't discount them from being accountable for their actions, but I would guess that's probably why there's a lot of weird and creepy people in this world who have never been diagnosed or are diagnosed, and that's just how they act. Not that they're all killers, but obviously some of them turn out to be that way. So it could have been all that. I know I just pitched to you saying, is this, here's how I think, Ann Taylor may be playing this. The other angle to that, the other side of the coin is, or is Kohberger just calling all the shots here? Is she there? Is this kind of like a Lori Vallow Daybell, where she ended up being her own attorney? Not saying it's going to go that extreme, but she obviously wanted to be in control. Karen Reed seemed to be in a lot of control of her case too. We saw how she was reacting in the courtroom, how she was dictating things to her attorneys. Ultimately, she is the boss. The attorneys are working for her, and Ann Taylor is working for him. How much of this is Kohberger thinking, I want you to go out there and argue that it could be these people, it could be that people? I mean, do you think it could be that? What are you, or is it just more Ann Taylor being smart and Kohberger going, whatever you think?
So I think Ann Taylor is smarter than that, again, unless it's part of her active forefront strategy. But again, she's hired by the family. And remember, the mother she's the one that's not giving in on this. So again, throwing back to trying to bring in all the data points I have on everything regarding this case, which they're all over the place, and getting out of what we see right here and kind of going back again. I don't think Kohberger is the one strategizing why he's innocent because he didn't really have a strategy to make himself innocent outside of his controlled way he was doing this. Again, if he's guilty, the mother is the one though that was trying to do more. My conjecture is that these might be ideas the mother's throwing at Ann Taylor, saying, "Well, he was in touch with this, so in touch with this person. I mean, the girls were." So I'm thinking maybe it's the mother kind of poking at Ann Taylor as well, saying, "Hey, try this, do this, do this, do this." So he's got a hard time. I think Kohberger probably does a good job answering questions that Ann Taylor poses, and I think that Ann Taylor might be posing questions she's getting from the mother.
I wonder, and I wonder how much is it coming from mom, or is it coming from mom to Kohberger and then Kohberger to mom as Kohberger's idea? Like, you should push this, you should push that. I mean, or it could be coming from Kohberger too. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it could be anything.
It would be. I wonder. I mean, that would be an interesting conversation to hear, a fly in the wall between mom and dad in that house.
I would imagine the mother's trying to save his life more than anyone else.
I would agree with that. I wonder if they both agree that he's innocent or guilty, or if one's one way and one's the other, because I don't know. I mean, it feels like dad, again, I'm just completely guessing here, but it seems like dad had a little more suspicion that Bryan was a bit off.
So boy, it's a hard one to place ourselves in a position of the parents right now. Because it's grueling, it's horrendous to even contemplate. And I don't think I know, again, you see me doing these pauses because I literally am trying to place myself, in this position with my own kids. So at this point, is she really thinking, or the parents really thinking he's innocent, or are they thinking more save his life, save his life, save his life, save his life? And so I think the actions that they're doing is, I don't think they're even entertaining the fact that my little boy did this. It's more, they don't even want to face that thought or idea. It's more of we have to save our boy's life. I know that's what I'd be doing.
Sure.
I gotta remove any of the horrendous actions he's being accused of, no matter how overwhelming the evidence, just because I don't want to believe it. I just want to focus on save his life, save his life, save his life. Because what was the case we just covered that the parents didn't even want to acknowledge that? What case? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. We covered it last week. I'm
running a blank.
I'm running a blank too, but basically it has exactly the same thing. That it was just not wanting to acknowledge the actions, or the guilty actions of the one they love, but they really wanted to focus on this.
Barry Morphew, the daughters. The daughters are still supporting dad, and mom is the one that he's alleged to have murdered. That might be the one.
I'm sorry. Oh my God, Gilgo Murders Beach.
The Gilgo, the Long Island serial killer. Oh yes, that one too. That one, the family is doing the same sort of thing.
The wife refuses, no matter what, to acknowledge the fact that he could have done it, would do it, even if it came from him. She won't even. She says they'll accept it if Rex Heuermann tells her himself, even though she won't. So I think we have that kind of thing going on. At least I would. In this kind of case here. So I think she's just trying hard to save his life.
I'd agree with that. The other big thing that the judge said nope to this week, nope. Hey, nope! You got a big nope here. This is my new thought.
My last couple years in the FBI, when I was done, I was ready to retire. I had what I called the big bucket of no. The judge got a big bucket of no. Nope. I literally, my wastebasket next to my desk had just no on it, and I had to throw everything. I said, "It's going in the bucket of no."
The bucket of no.
Robin, can you do this? No.
The other thing he said no to was no continuance, meaning this thing is happening as scheduled. Kohberger's attorneys argued passionately that they needed additional time, citing late discovery disclosures and uncooperative witnesses. Yet Judge Hippler remained firm, denying the continuance request and insisting the trial proceeds as planned. Sent a strong message about the trial's perceived readiness and urgency. So they have to be ready. They have to go. Obviously, she probably wanted more time. More time would be the only thing you could get that would be positive, it seems, in this case. How do you take this? Do you think it was the right choice to keep moving this thing forward in the way it's going? Did they have enough time? Obviously, if they gave them 10 years, I think they'd still go back and say, we need more time. We just got that last week. What are your thoughts?
I think the judge is siding with the victims and not the accused.
Yeah.
Let's just press. He's being very reasonable. I think he's done a good job of mitigating to the best of his ability any appeals, because it's going to be appealed no matter what, especially if he gets a death sentence on this. If he's found guilty and gets a death sentence, it will be appealed. And I think he's doing his best to mitigate that. And Ann Taylor is doing her best to get every single day of life extra on his life that she possibly can. Yeah. So I think it was a great call, because we just got to pull the trigger and go.
Yeah, I agree. The DoorDash driver, that's becoming a big thing, and I do feel bad for this woman. Initials are MM. She's recently some video has been unearthed of her last year being pulled over and then talking to an officer in the station, talking about how she was the DoorDash driver from the Idaho murders case, and then goes on to say that she saw Bryan Kohberger. He was parked next to her, according to her, in that rant, I guess you could say, that she was giving in that recorded session. It wasn't testimony. It wasn't an interrogation. It was just her telling why she was there, why she was arrested, the stress that she's under, and all the horrible things that have happened to her in her life, which are a lot. This woman has been through a lot of horrible stuff. We don't know. We do not know the answer to this question. We don't know exactly what she told officers when she was interviewed right after the crime. We do not know if she said that she saw Kohberger there or that she parked next to him. That's just never come out. That's been part of the sealed stuff. We do know that she said that she was there, though. So everyone's been freaking out. We even made a deal of it because it was kind of weird at the beginning of her saying she saw Kohberger. Now, if that matches up to what she told officers in court when that all comes out, then no problem, no foul. It's already been out there. But if she didn't tell officers that, if that was not part of the story previously, and now suddenly, and a couple of years later, when she gets pulled over for being, pretty off on her meds, this is coming out, that's a credibility issue. Even if it's truly not, even this is just really a woman who's very, very troubled. A jury's going to see that as, why now? Why are you just saying this now? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to have to be congruent with her original statements to law enforcement for credibility. Again, when you do a deeper dive on credibility and witnesses, the more time that passes, the less credible they are. And we have a lot of time that's passed on this. If indeed these statements are found later, and she made the statements later, not earlier, what can make her more compelling and credible is a compelling story. In other words, the transparency, the vulnerability, the things that she has shared that we do know about her makes her a compelling figure that you want to believe. And then it comes down to the story. It's interesting. Human beings as a species, we have evolved because of our storytelling capabilities. We love a good story. With stories is what gives things credibility. All cases come down to one side telling their story, another side telling their story. Juries decide what story they like better and which are supported by facts more. It really comes down to that storytelling. So if she tells a good story about her background and who she is, which makes her a compelling individual, and she made the statements early on when first stopped, that brings some level of great credibility. But again, if the story came out later that she made the claims with no reference to it earlier, it's going to be really, I don't think it's going to have a negative impact. I think it's just going to tarnish her.
I'm worried about that one, because to me, I'm going to guess the defense is going to just hone in on that and going, okay, great, you got your story. And they're going to have to do it strategically, because this woman could get a lot of empathy. There's two ways she could play it. There's one way it could be played. And I'm not saying she's playing this. I'm just saying two ways it could be perceived, I guess, is how it really is. If the jury, hears a bit about her background, about the trauma that she's gone through witnessing her husband being murdered in front of her. There was another friend, I believe, that died. I don't know the details of that in front of me, and I read it the other day, but I don't know enough to recall it. But I know there's another death that she had dealt with. And now, being this connected to the Kohberger case, is basically the star witness. Mm-hmm. If you've gone through all that, and the defense will end up, trying to undercut her, trying to show she's not reliable. See, she's on these medications. She suffers from these ailments, these stresses, the jury could look at that and go, yeah, I mean, maybe it was a false memory. Or they can look at it and go, God, this woman has been through a lot of stuff. And this is really the definition of someone with just horrible, horrible luck. A series of bad coincidences, it seems to be, that she's been surrounded by, none related to the other. How will the jury see that? Do you think the jury is going to look at that and go, God, a lot of empathy, or God, she's a mess?
It's going to depend, I think. What really struck me when I first saw this, and as you're describing her and this whole situation, is we talked about this before with a surviving roommate, and some of the challenges that if Anne, goes after, the defense attorney goes after the surviving roommate and tries to attack her in the same way, even though she's been traumatized by this entire event, it could really backfire with trying to erode the credibility of her seeing the bushy eyebrows. Yeah. But what could be really powerful, because one thing that juries are looking for is congruence and similarities of stories, because that's what makes people credible. So now if you have both a surviving roommate as well as the DoorDash driver kind of being traumatized through different things in life and having a similar traumatic experience that night and telling a very similar story and similar observations, which are going to reinforce each other, that makes them both much more credible. Mm-hmm. So I think if I was a prosecutor, that's what I'd be looking at, is that how do we make both these individuals compelling, very similar and congruent in their stories, and also background of what they went through. That's what's going to, then Ann Taylor is kind of done on it, I think. I mean, how do you battle that?
I don't know. I mean, you're also relying on the jurors having enough empathy, deep empathy, or empathy at all, because some folks just don't, for this person, and how that's all going to read. Because I could see somebody, a very crass individual looking at her, and even though her story does all add up, all the trauma she's been through, not wanting to take the moment to consider any of that, just going, she's a mess. Look at her. She's crazy. Just the crass, stupid things people say when they don't take a clinical or a critical look at things. She got to battle that too. There's just a lot that I think could go wrong with a jury. I mean, is her testimony worthy? I mean, do we need her up there testifying, or is the case stronger without it?
I don't know. I haven't seen her. I haven't heard her speak. I would want to do that first as well. Mm-hmm. Because now we have optic-wise, you have three young women and one male that were murdered. Mm-hmm. And now you have two witnesses, both females. So you could have a lot of sympathy on that aspect as well, about this one guy, Kohberger, who purportedly is traumatizing all women that he's encountered. I mean, so I think there's an aspect of that as well. I think it's going to come down to how she presents herself in a courtroom. I mean, that's what a lot of lawyers do, is not just what they're going to say and the content of it, but how they're going to present in the courtroom. And so, if she's a compelling figure in the courtroom, they might want her.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big question. Now, okay, they can't argue third party. They can't. There's no delay going on here anymore. I mean, the evidence that we've seen is pretty damning. Kohberger, from what we know, of what we've seen, doesn't really play that well, I think, in a courtroom to a jury. At least we haven't seen him in front of a jury yet, but he's just very kind of stoic, silent. I know that they're trying to make excuses for it, of the autism and all that, but you think they should maybe do a little intervention there? A little look, we know you don't naturally show emotion like human beings do. But can we give you a human lesson for a little while and just try and even act it, fake it till you make it in front of the jury so you don't look like the cold calculating monster that you very well might be? Do you think that you think they will, and do you think they should try and work with Kohberger a little bit to be a little bit more likable in court? Because right now you just kind of got a cold body sitting there.
You can't.
No.
We are who we are. Our baseline is our baseline. And even though we might be able to control our baseline for limited periods of time, over a period of time that exhausts us, I did a lot of undercover work. And I can tell you the emotional energy drain of trying to be someone you're not over a period of time is exhausting and unsustainable. And just look at this in politics. We see this in politics all the time. You see someone politicking on the stump or in commercials, and yet when they get in office, they turn into, after a period of time, they're nothing like we saw here, because the act is gone. It's an act. If you're acting, it's extremely energy draining. And also at this point, people have seen him enough to know that it would be an act, and it would come across as extremely incongruent, extremely disingenuous. I think so. I do a lot of coaching with people that say, Robin, what do I do if I have what's called natural resting angry face? And if you can't do anything about it, you simply say, well, then what's called negate the frame. And that's what she's trying to do with the autism. What that means is that if you have a certain look or way about you that is off-putting, the first thing you can do to engender trust is say, listen, I know that I have this natural resting angry face. Just know when I'm doing this is actually my code for letting you know non-verbally, I'm really paying attention to you. I'm sorry that I look this way, but it's just the way it is. So you get a little smile, you get a little reaction, and then now we know that anytime we see Robin doing this, he's not angry. He's just paying attention. So the best thing you can do is negate that frame. So here's the frame in what you're going to see. I'm going to negate what you're seeing by giving an explanation before you see it.
Yeah, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. My girlfriend calls it RBF, resting bitch face. Because
I didn't want to use that word, but yes, that's what I call it.
Because actually, and then on our first date, she said that to me. She's like, I just want you to know. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I still really haven't seen it. I'm like, you look pretty nice every time but I get it. Like some people, some people will perceive that, and that's a good, important thing to do. The autism thing, though, I mean, if they can't introduce that into the trial at all, how are they going to say it? Just like, look, he has RBF. And
you can say, you can. I don't know how she would do it or whether it plays well. What I would do, I am not a lawyer. I would say, listen, welcome to during opening statement says, here's who I am. Here's who my client is. My client has spent his career in education as a professional educator, is getting his PhD. And as such, he's got a certain way that he looks and how he interacts with the world. He's very stoic. He's very this. In other words, I would explain exactly what the look is and what it actually means without giving a technical or clinical diagnosis. Says, listen, he's got resting bitch face because he's not actually bitchy. He's not actually a serial killer. Yeah. He's just really focused on what we're all saying.
Ignore the fact that he's acting and looking like a serial killer and he's on trial for being one. But just because he looks and acts like one doesn't mean he is.
So on a sidebar on this, what really struck me, because last week we talked about Rex Heuermann. Yeah. And we watched the Peacock special with Asa and the daughter Victoria and Rex himself. We heard Rex speak in that. Yeah. And part of that was we saw some film footage of BTK. All I was thinking is the entire time was, well, BTK and Rex Heuermann, as off-putting as Rex looks, when you hear him speak, he's actually not off-putting. Yeah. And so I'm thinking is that, wow, you have both BTK and Rex Heuermann look a lot more nice and congenial than he does.
They actually do.
I know, BTK, kind of a charming looking guy, it just.
And when he speaks pretty eloquently.
I know.
At least he did.
And that's why poor Kohberger, man, he's got a lot going against him.
They were also much older than him too. Like it makes you wonder, like if Kohberger had some more reps in life, would he have been that person after that, or did he just get caught far too young?
Well, it's what makes a successful serial killer is their charm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's why they were doing, again, think about it, it's why they got away with what they were doing. But again, Rex, you know, innocent until proven guilty. But, you know, what makes people successful at their careers is the maturity level and your ability to compel people to do things that are not in their best interest. It comes down to personality.
I don't think Kohberger possessed that trait. And I think that's another thing. That's why he got caught. I think it's why he, I don't think would ever have been a successful serial killer.
So let's, you know, so here's a little thought experiment. Both BTK and Rex Human interacted with their victims before they were victimized.
Yeah.
Correct?
Rex Human and BTK.
Some level.
To some level, yes.
Prostitution. I mean, he actually, you know, even BTK prostitutes.
BTK stalked. There's so many in his case. I would imagine there was at least one that there was some sort of interaction, I believe.
Yeah, and I was just only because, you know, my thought experiment was both of them, because they had more congenial personalities, that they had the ability to actually form some sort of connection in their stalking or with anyone that they're potentially assessing as victims. Again, innocent until proven guilty. You know, Kohberger, lack of social ability, lack of social skills, no interaction with the victims ahead of time. So maybe that.
I think that's a big difference. I mean, all allegedly, obviously, innocent until proven guilty. Yes, but yeah, I mean, BTK. I mean, although he wasn't super. He was pretty normal in his community. He didn't like, I mean, if he showed up at your doorstep, you know, in a uniform, you'd probably let him in. He says, oh yeah, that's the guy that gets the dogs. You know, he wasn't super, he didn't appear very threatening. He just didn't. Rex,
and even with Rex Human, Rex Human has an off-putting look.
But when you hear him talk, and there was that interview he did about the architecture stuff.
Yeah,
he seemed like a pretty affable guy. Like he's wearing sunglasses, doing some silly
stuff. His best friend thought so too.
Yeah, Kohberger, that didn't exist. I think he was just awkward, and I think that was his biggest struggle in life, and probably partially what maybe drove him to this.
I agree.
Is just that is no matter what he did, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't act human, and other humans noticed that, and so. Messed up story. It will continue to evolve. We're getting closer and closer to the actual trial. And of course, we will be here for every single second of it. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this case on YouTube. Do check that out. If you're not there already, please go and check out our YouTube channel. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi and press subscribe on the podcast platform. Press subscribe there so you don't miss any of our coverage in this case and the many that we cover for you right here. Robin Dreeke, as always, thank you for your input on the case that's about to get even bigger and more explosive.
Great to be with you on the road to justice.
Craving non-stop true crime updates? Press subscribe now and get the latest cases, analysis, and expert commentary delivered straight to your feed. Only from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.